Brian Powell of I Run Far here with Jeff Browning before the 2017 Western States 100. How are you, Jeff?
I'm great. How are you?
All right. I feel like I'm having a deja vu.
Totally.
So last year you were third here, fourth at Hard Rock, fourth at Run Rabbit Run. You tired at all?
No, you know, I took a good rest in the winter, some downtime, and then, you know, did a build up and have raced early pretty hard in 2017, and then kind of shut it down and did some shorter stuff, and stayed closer to home this year for the spring. So not a lot of travel even. So I'm feeling good, man. I feel normal.
Do you feel like, you know, okay, so you feel normal now. Let's say, you know, end of September, beginning of October, do you still get like pretty tired out by everything?
I'm mentally tired than I am physically tired. By the time I get done with that, you know, because just, you know, 100 after 100, it tends to like, it's just the 100s take a lot of mental, and I think that's when you got to take a little downtime. Especially I have family, you know, and you know, 3 kids and a wife, and yeah, I gotta take that time with them. Yeah. Because they sacrifice a lot during the hardcore race season when I'm running hundreds, because I'm, you know, ebbing and flowing with training. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so last year, externally, looking at your race here, you ran pretty much a perfectly executed race. Did it feel that way? And like, how do you?
It did feel that way. And it felt good. I mean, when I hit Michigan Bluff and Bath Road, I was feeling on, and I felt really good. And it helps when you've paced well early in this race that, you know, I didn't get passed after mile 25. I was in 17th at 25, and I never got passed, and, you know, ended up in 3rd. So, like, that, being able to just pick guys off, it's so good for your confidence in the race, mentally, and it also helps, you know, emotionally, physically, everything, because it feeds you every time you catch somebody. So you're like, come around a corner, you're like, oh, I'm gonna get another one. And so when that happens, it's really, you know, it's really good for your race mentality too. Like, your mental state is really good in those situations. So, I mean, I'd like to do that in this race again. Do
you think you can catch lightning twice?
I don't know, right? We'll see. I mean, the snow is going to be a factor. You know, you know, I went and scouted today. We have a lot of snow. Probably gonna have snow the first 16 miles, or majority of the first 16 miles, or really challenging conditions. So that's gonna slow us down. Overall splits are gonna be slower, you know, to Robinson Flat. So, or at least to Red Star Ridge, we're gonna be slower. So, you know, we'll see where we are at that point. You know, we don't know. That's why I was telling my crew, you know, we'll see where we are at Robinson Flat, and if we're even close to the splits. You know, I always have goal splits, so we'll see if we can hit those.
Yeah,
but I doubt it.
You doubt it, at least early on.
Early on, I'd like to hit them later, but if we, you know, we'll see how much that snow affects splits.
And you know, you set down your 3rd last year. You set down a good time. Do you think you can match that time-wise again?
I mean, I would love to run the same time I did last year with the snow conditions. So, so that you can do the math on what I want to run if it was dry. I definitely would like to go faster than 16:30 on a dry year. Yeah. And I think I can. I mean, I think there's plenty of room for some improvement last year on my performance. Yeah. Just a couple of aid stations, a couple of other things, and I went in with a little bit of a calf strain last year after the training runs, the Memorial Day training runs, so I didn't get really good training at the end.
So the race was pretty close to perfectly executed, but there's a couple tweaks and a little training you can improve on.
You always can find, I mean, and when you've been doing it as long as I have, there's always like in your mind going, I could have made up a little there, I could have done something different there. But you know, that's...
You're also always gonna probably have a little bit of that.
Like, yeah, always, and maybe you wouldn't. So yeah, you know, and in a race like this, we always have heat. So heat's always a factor. So there's sometimes some aid stations are going to take you longer than you anticipate.
You need to deal with it.
Yeah, you got to take care of yourself.
And if you don't finish 3rd.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's snow early. You were up on there. It's
we went up today. Jesse and I went up there today. Yeah, it's slushy. There's a lot. I mean, it's like running in. It's not going to be icy, so that's a good thing. But it's definitely like running in like soft sand.
Now, you can't do screw shoes. No additions to your shoes.
Yeah, you can't do anything here.
What are you gonna use for shoes this week?
I'm gonna run in the Ultra Temp, the new Temp that's coming out. I have the production model. So this will be the 3rd race in that shoe. Ran Hard Rock last year. Coyote Backbone 68 miler in March this year in a second round prototype, and then I have the production model now. So, you know, kind of like a Torin trail shoe.
Good. Where does that fit into the ultra trail lineup?
It fits in between the Lone Peak and the Olympus. So it's just a little more stack height than the Lone Peak, but it's a wider platform, a little more mesh upper. So it drains well, dries well. This race, it's important to have a dry shoe because you're wet the whole time. You're trying to stay wet, and so you don't want sloshy shoes. So that'll be the shoe. Great tread. You know, it's kind of a hybrid between the Superior and the Olympus tread. So good lugs. I mean, I was on the snow today, and it'll be fine.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you ran a bunch of races this winter, spring, and won a lot of them. But sort of closer to home, lower profile.
I stayed close this year. I mean, I'm going to UTMB this year, so I wanted to stay closer to home in the spring and just race locally or regionally in the Northwest. And I did go down to Coyote Backbone, but you know, Patagonia's down there, and
it
so
kind of feels like a close to home.
Yeah, it's a close to home race, and it's an easy flight out of Bend. So, you know. Yeah.
So how do you judge your fitness? Because it's kind of easier when you're stacked up against some of the best in the world or the Western states and you see how you perform. How do you know how fit you are?
I mean, for me, after all these years, just I kind of just I hit about the same, almost like identical mileage every year without even trying. You know, if I looked at my total volume for the year. So I kind of know what I have to do. I know I need to peak and I need to taper and I need to do some peaks and valleys here and there in training. I use strategic 50Ks and, you know, bigger races I raced a little harder in the spring, early spring, and then I did shorter races earlier because I like to take out the hard, long stuff too close to Western states. I don't want to burn too many matches. I'd rather come in here more than well rested than a little overtrained.
Maybe you saw the people back in the day run, whoever won the Miwok 100K wasn't winning Western states.
Exactly, not very often. I think Jurek did it once or twice, but you know, those times weren't super fast back then. Like that wouldn't have been winning it in it today.
No.
So you gotta be ready. So I think it's better to be conservative coming into the race.
You could probably look over my shoulder and see Chris Mako over there. Not so conservative.
No, just ran the training runs fast. Because I ran with him one day, and we ran together for a while, but then he took off, and he was hammering, and then he turned around a week later and went and ran a marathon
in Ireland.
So we'll see how his legs do.
So you've had a lot of experience and a lot of observation in the sport. How do you think like the men's podium might play out this weekend?
I don't know if I can make that prediction. I mean, I think Jim, if he runs smart, I mean, I don't think he'll miss the turn this year. So. And he won't jump in the river and swim.
And try to swim?
Well, we can't this year, right? We're on the raft. So so that one, we'll take that out. If he can run, I mean, I think I will see him go faster at the beginning. Last year he was hiking really slow on the first climb, so he was way back behind us. And we were all like,
really?
I mean, Ian Sharman and I were together going, what's he doing behind us? That's really weird. So I think he'll be out. I think he'll kind of charge from the beginning. He's got more confidence. He's got another year of racing under his belt, you know. I think we'll see. Jim's the one to beat. I think Jim said this at the Memorial Day training runs. Only Jim can beat Jim. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Right? And the rest, I don't know how to play out. I mean, I'd love to be on the podium again, but you know, it's 100 miles and you just don't know. Like it's one of those days that my ultimate goal is to be in the top 10, so I can bypass the lottery again.
So like, if things are going a little rough, say mid race, you might play it out a little more conservatively and just try to get that top 10 rather than.
Yeah.
Go for the gusto to get third place or something. I mean,
we'll see.
Yeah.
I'd love to still be up there in the top 5. So, you know, I'll say that. I'd love to still be up there.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm having a rough race if I can't be in the contention up there, just because I tend to not go too fast early, and I just don't roll that way. And I don't like to run hundreds that way. And this will be number 2700, my 27th hundred. So, you know, I just use the way I run them, and that's start out mellow and try to bring it at the end.
I mean, there's a pretty talented men's field here, and a lot of really super fast guys, but you mentioned guys like Jesse Haynes and Ian Sharman and yourself, and like you can kind of count on a bunch of guys like yourself and those others to
run smart races.
and end up in the top 10, even if they might be 25th at
Yeah, that's where those are the ones you got to worry about coming from behind you. Yeah, and you just don't. I mean, you don't know in these things, and there's there's a lot of fast guys and young guys that don't have a lot of 100-mile experience. So that's why this race is so fun, because there's 30 guys that could win it on paper.
Yeah,
but hundreds are so tricky, and in the heat and the competition, and there's never unless you go to Europe. There's never this deep of a field. Rarely, not 30 guys, right? So that's what makes this such a special race, and makes it a hard race, because it's easy to run other people's race around you, and because you're used to leading. Everyone's used to leading. Like, there's 30 guys that are used to being in the top 3 of a race, and they're in 12th, and they're like, what am I doing in 12th? And then it starts getting in their head, and then they run too hard in that first 50 miles, and when your legs come off in 100, they kind of come off.
Yeah.
And that's
or you can be 15 minutes or 20 minutes back at Robinson Flat and be like,
still, yeah. Or you can be 15 minutes back at Forest Hill and still bring it and catch a bunch of guys. So, I mean, Jeff Rose in 2010 proved that when, Killian and Tony were way ahead, and he was like 15 or 20 minutes back at one point, and then he won. Yeah. So like you can still make up that time, and especially once you hit Forest Hill, it's so runnable. That's such a sweet spot of the race. You need legs there, but it's still hot. If you can get through the heat with legs and still have legs, then that's the way to run this race. So
all right, well, show us how it's done on Saturday, Jeff.
I hope so.
Take care.
Thanks, buddy.